Bpod Studios.
This is Talkin Rock. Talkin Rock. Your backstage pass to some of your favorite rock artists. Here's your host, Meltdown.
Hey, before we get into today's episode, next week I've already got interviews lined up with two singers, musicians who are, if I'm not mistaken, I think both of them are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we'll get into that coming up here next week. But this week, it's a great episode for you. Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater, as well as Dennis Dunaway from the Alice Cooper Band. Dennis was actually here in studio with me around 2017, 2018, something like that. This time around, he was at his house or wherever he was. We'll talk with Dennis coming up here in a few minutes. But first, Mike Portnoy, as the guys from Dream Theater begin their fall kickoff as far as their tour is concerned on September 5th. They're going to be here in Southeast Michigan coming up on September 21st at the Fox Theater, one of the most beautiful theaters in all the world, according to Joe Bonamassa. So we talk about the tour, getting back together with the band. We talk about the passing of Ozzy, his friendship with Rush's Neil Peart, which is always interesting. I have some friends who are friends with some pretty big rock stars that I find like fascinating, but Neil Peart was on a different level because he kind of kept to himself. He was, you just didn't get into his inner circle very easily. So we'll talk about that coming up, as well as films and more. You can watch this interview at WRIF.com and on YouTube as well. Mike Portnoy, the legendary drummer from Dream Theater, gets us rolling on Talkin Rock. Hey, Mike, good to see you, man.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that Beatles poster you got right there. I know you're a big Beatles fan. You've probably talked about this before, but what is like your Beatles album?
There's no single one. It changes every day. I mean, one day it could be Revolver, one day it's the White Album, one day it's Pepper. It changes every day for 58 years now. Literally from day one, I was a Beatles fanatic from day one, and they're still my goats of all time. So
now,
yeah.
Now I remember. So we're pretty close in age. I remember when John Lennon was killed. I discovered my dad's Beatle albums, and ironically enough, Mark David Chapman's holed up in my hometown outside of Buffalo, New York, in this little prison. And a lot of my friends worked there. But how did you discover the Beatles?
I'm not kidding when I say day one. Like, literally, I was born April 20th, 1967. That was the day that they completed Sgt. Pepper. And then it came out 6 weeks later. And I was listening to it in real time from that point on. My dad was a huge, huge rock music fan. He was even a rock DJ on a California station a few years later. And I was surrounded with it. So I remember when the White Album came out. I remember when Abbey Road came out. I remember spinning all my little records with green apples on them and stuff. And so I was a fan in real time. And the first concert I ever saw was George Harrison on his short-lived solo tour in 1974. And then I saw Paul McCartney on the Wings Over America tour in '76, a few years later. So yeah, when John was tragically killed in 1980, I was already there with them that whole ride up until then. So yeah.
Yeah, you were already invested. Yeah. The first time I ever saw a Beatle live was in 2009. I think I was at the Grammys and Paul McCartney was there, and I actually texted one of my friends. I said, I am in a building with the Beatle right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have met both living Beatles, both Ringo and Paul. I have great stories about meeting both of those guys, both amazing experiences. But I don't want to take up our interview talking about that. But yeah, they're my goats.
Yeah. So wait a second. You brought it up real fast. So when you meet Ringo, do you tell him what a huge fan and what an influence he was?
Of course. Well, I was introduced to him. I met him back in the late 90s. And I had just like that week or whatever won like some Modern Drummer Award or whatever. So the guy introducing me to Ringo was like, "Oh, this is Mike Portnoy. He just won Modern Drummer of the Year, whatever." And Ringo said, "I thought I was Drummer of the Year." And I was like, "No, you're Drummer of the Century. You're Drummer of the Millennium."
No, that's so cool, man. Yeah, you've had a chance to meet a lot of your heroes. I was just reading before we got on about how you became friends with Neil Peart. Of course, I never had a chance to meet him. I'm probably like a lot of people, but I did read Ghost Rider. I thought that was really
amazing.
Good. And I saw that you talked about how he would send you these emails. I can just imagine what these emails, I mean, just the way he wrote and the meticulousness about just his aura.
Yeah, he was like that. Like if you've read any of his books like Ghost Rider or his lyrics for that matter. He was quite a writer, and that translated as well to his emails. These emails I'd get from him would be pages long and so eloquently written, and every word so meticulously picked and placed. He was just, he was like that. But yeah, I would get these emails from him, and what a treasure. I saved them all, of course, and what a treasure to have. Every once in a while, I'll pull them up and go back and reminisce. But yeah, what an honor for me to have become friends with him, those last 15 years of his life or so. He was such a gracious person. And if he let you into his inner circle, which he was very protective over, that really was like the ultimate honor. And for me, it was.
Yeah. Why do you think it was that he was so private? I mean, do you think he didn't? I got the impression like he didn't like people like fawning over him. Like he was just so good, and everybody had to say how good he was, and maybe early on that kind of wore on him. Do you think?
A lot of it was his. He was just so humble. He was a really, really humble person. Everybody on earth telling him he's the greatest drummer of all time, which he probably was. But, he never believed it. He always wanted to be better. He always strived to be better. He famously took lessons with Freddie Gruber, late in his career. He was just a very gracious, humble person. And I guess protective over his private time. As the longer I'm in this business, I get it. I'm 58 now. I've been in the business for, Dream Theater's been together 40 years, but I've been touring pretty steadily for well over 30 years. And I get that sometimes when you're on the road, your private time is real sacred and real important. And I love his line in the song Limelight. I can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend. It's a brilliant, brilliant lyric. And I could totally relate that, the longer I'm doing this, the older I'm getting, the more guarded and protective I am over my private time. I could totally relate to that sentiment.
Yeah. Did you ever go see Lakeside Park in St. Catharines?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, I got to stop by there one day. I drive through there sometimes. But, let's get back to Dream Theater here, September 21st at the Fox Theater. I don't know, have you ever played the Fox? That's like Joe Bonamassa told me it's one of the nicest theaters he's ever played in. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not sure if Dream Theater has without me, but I personally have never played there, and I've seen pictures of it, and I know its history. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that show for two reasons. First of all, is to play that legendary theater, but second of all, we didn't hit Detroit on the first leg of the 40th anniversary tour, and this is kind of a big reunion for this lineup. This lineup hasn't played well over 15 years. So, each and every stop on that first U.S. tour, whether it be Chicago or Dallas or L.A. or Phoenix, everywhere we went, it was a lot of people's first time seeing this lineup together in 15 years, or in some cases of younger people seeing this lineup together for the first time ever. So we haven't had that experience yet back in Detroit. So this is one of the main markets that we didn't get to hit the first time around, and I'm really glad we are this time. Yeah,
it's interesting that you bring it up because there's a whole generation of kids that'll never get to see the original Pantera, for example. Right. It's stuff like that. So at least the prog rock fans and the rock fans can come out and see you guys, like you said, the original lineup getting ready and getting back together. I'm one of I don't know how many guys you talked to. I know you talked to Eddie and stuff, but yeah, I played Pull Me Under when it was brand new on the radio. That's how old I am.
Yeah, well, it made a huge difference. I mean, the way that song caught on at radio back in '92 when it came out changed our lives. We were, a struggling young band from Long Island, just trying to find our audience. And when radio got behind Pull Me Under all those years ago, it opened up the doors and began this ride that we've been on ever since.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that, obviously, Ringo Starr was an early influence on you, but obviously you don't play like Ringo Starr. You're more.
I can, though. I just don't in Dream Theater.
Yeah, I got you. But when does the gears kind of shift in your head? It's like, man, this Neil Peart guy got, or stuff like that. When does that change for you?
Well, I have so many heroes in terms of drummers that range from guys like Ringo or Charlie Watts that you wouldn't necessarily hear in my playing, to guys like Neil Peart and Bill Bruford and Terry Bozzio that are a little more obvious, but I love them all equally. I also love thrash metal drummers and jazz fusion drummers. But in answer to your question, it depends on music I'm playing, where the influences come out. With Dream Theater's music is very technical and progressive, so my progressive and technical influences are going to come out. There's not necessarily a place for Ringo's style drumming in a lot of these crazy 10-minute Dream Theater epics. But through the years, especially in my downtime outside of the band, when I wasn't with the band, I did all these other bands and projects that did tap into all these other influences. I had a band like the Winery Dogs that was tapping into like a power trio, classic rock sound. I was able to get into my John Bonham and Mitch Mitchell and Ginger Baker influences with a band like that. Then I have a band like Metal Allegiance, which taps into all my thrash metal influences, so I could do my Dave Lombardo and Mickey D and Vinnie Paul with that. And there's a lot of things I've had that have had places for the Beatles and the Ringo influence, like Transatlantic or Flying Colors, are two more prog bands that I've done that have a heavy Beatles influence, or I even did a Beatles tribute band with Paul Gilbert many years ago. So I was able to full on do Ringo mode for something like that. So I could pick and choose my influences and where they show up depending on the musical environment that I'm with.
Yeah, you just mentioned like tons of bands. I saw you guys play with Winery Dogs here last time. You've been with Billy Sheehan and a couple different projects, obviously Sons of Apollo and whatnot. What's it like to play with a guy like Billy?
Billy has always been my favorite bass player on earth, or surely one of them. I was a fan of his, decades before he and I ever played together. I was going to see Tallis in the Long Island clubs back in the early 80s. And I was a huge fan of him in particular, just from that. And then when he joined the David Lee Roth band in 85 or 6, whatever that was, I mean, that first band with Billy and Steve Vai was a huge, huge influence for us in Dream Theater, just the musicianship. So yeah, I've been a fan of Billy's before I was ever a bandmate of his. And then once I started branching out doing different things, of course, he was the guy I wanted to work with. So we've worked together on so many things. The first thing we did was a Rush tribute album in the mid 90s. And then from there, I called on him to be in my Who tribute band that I did with Paul Gilbert and Gary Cherone. So the four of us did a Who tribute, and Billy just killed that. And then once I left Dream Theater and had these opportunities to create my own things, I called him for so many of them. We did a instrumental fusion thing with Tony McAlpine and Derek Sherinian. And then we formed the Winery Dogs with Richie Kotzen. And then we formed Sons of Apollo with Derek Sherinian and Bumblefoot and Jeff Scott Soto. So Billy and I, especially in my years out of Dream Theater, we have done so many things together, and it's just down to, I respect him so much as a bass player and connect with him musically. He and I as a rhythm section are just like locked and loaded and ready to rock.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm not in a band, but I play sports, and it's got to be like playing with the same winger or something like that, on hockey or whatever. It's cool that you bring up Tallis, because like I said, I grew up in Buffalo. My demo tapes to get on the radio, I recorded with Dave Constantino from Tallis.
Oh yeah,
88 or something like that.
Well, the very first Dream Theater shows back in 85 when we first started playing, or 86, we were still called Majesty. And those first couple shows, we were covering the Farandole by Tallis. And we were big fans of him back then when we first put the band together.
Yeah, it's funny because I've always kind of argued the fact that I think that David Lee Roth band with Billy Sheehan and Steve Vai and Greg Bissonette might have been the best band of the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like my dream band at the time, for sure.
Yeah, that was a great record that they came out with. But like you said, you're coming back here with Dream Theater. So it's been a while now. You've played a bunch of shows. I mean, obvious question. How's it feeling for you back behind the kit?
It's been incredible. I mean, even though this is our first time coming through Detroit since I've been back in the band, it's been coming up on 2 years now for us. So, the reunion's kind of... it's been worked in. We spent the first year making our new album, Parasomnia, and then we spent the second year, starting this past October. We've been on the road since then, and there's no letting up anytime soon. So we've already played almost 100 shows at this point all around the world. And like I mentioned already, everywhere we play for the first time, there's just such an energy and excitement and emotion in the audience, people getting to see this lineup together again. So each and every place we go, it's just been overwhelming. The numbers have been great. It's been the biggest tour that Dream Theater's ever done. So I really can't say enough of how exciting it's been. And there's still a lot of gas left in the tank. We have this whole U.S. tour, which is hitting a lot of markets we didn't get to hit the first time around. So we get to share that first experience with so many people. And then we do Australia and Asia after the new year, next January, February, and March. Then we have another European tour next spring. So yeah, it's when all's said and done, it's going to be about a 1.5-year tour cycle, just getting around to everybody. And it's just been bigger and better than ever.
I know I've heard you talking about this in the past, where you're really a hands-on guy, and you like to keep your control, so to speak. So how much control do you have now going back into the band? Is it like before, or is there some other things kind of that other guys are doing now?
I wouldn't say it's like before. When I left the band in 2010, I was a control freak and oversaw every aspect, every text, every email, every single aspect of the band, whether it be the merchandise, the fan clubs, the set list, blah, blah, blah. I was very a control freak, very much so. And it's not like that now. The years that I was gone, the band kind of redesigned their internal structure and how they work. John Petrucci ended up taking on a lot of responsibilities. He solely produces the albums now, whereas we used to do them together back then. And there was a lot of things, a lot of restructuring they had to do while I was gone. So now coming back to that, after 13 years away, I have to be very respectful over, what they had built all the years without me. And I'm not going to come in here and just assume that it's going to be exactly how it was when I left, because it's not going to be. And John and I had a conversation even before we solidified me coming back. We just laid out the conversation like, he was like, hey, are you going to be okay not doing this? Are you going to be okay sharing this? And we had to kind of lay out all of those dynamics on how we would function internally. And it's okay. I'm actually happier now this way. I think it's a better band dynamic. It's a more true balance now than it was. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And there are a lot of areas that were given back to me, like writing the set lists. And with that comes programming the house music at the show and the intermission and all the kind of stuff that goes into the way the show is run, the concert presentation. So luckily that has always been my biggest passion. So that's one area that was kind of thrown back to me. And then sequencing the album order, that was always another big one for me. So yeah, we talked about the ones that were important to share and the ones that were important to delegate and find a happy balance.
Yeah, like I said, I've been in this business for a while, and one of my things I always said was, if you want it done, you just got to do it yourself. That's kind of how I am too.
That was my old mentality, because the first 15 years of the band, we went through everything as a quote unquote democracy. But all that meant was we would just fight and bicker until I would beat everybody down. So there was a point about 15 years in, about 1999, 2000, when we made the Scenes from Memory album, we decided we're going to do away with this fake democracy. And myself and John were going to run the ship. We were going to co-produce the albums. We were going to make the business decisions together. And, so once we kind of got into that way of running the show, it went a lot smoother. And there was a lot of things that I had freedom to just make decisions on my own. I didn't have to go back to the band to discuss and bicker and argue. And it did run much better that way. But then I also see, how that could cause a little resentments too when one guy is making a lot of decisions without the discussion or inclusion of other band members. So I think the way we do it now is, like I said, it's the best of both worlds, and it's a very smooth way of running. And we're much older. We're all in our late 50s and 60s, where we're a lot more mature. We don't want to fight and bicker over, what is going to be the third song on the B side of the album. A lot of people realize you pick and choose your fights, and you pick and choose your battles, and not everything is worth fighting over. And it's a much more calmer headspace, more serene way of doing things at this point in our career.
Now, you like you just mentioned, you were out of the band for 13 or 14 years, and you come back into the band. Do you ever think that there are some bands out there that I'm not going to talk about that they should just get back together just for the fans or just for whatever? Maybe they've grown up. Maybe there's things you learned that you could pass along to them. I mean, from being away from Dream Theater for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, I recommend this to anybody that's on the fence about reuniting with their band, because it's the best thing we ever did. And a lot of people ask me if I have any regrets about leaving Dream Theater. I would say my only regret is that it took so long to come back together. I wish it had come back together sooner. So you see like Roger Waters bickering with David Gilmour, or, Skid Row bickering with Sebastian Bach. And all I could say is, guys, you're older and wiser. Do it for the fans, if anything else. I'm so glad that I came back to Dream Theater and we ride off into the sunset together. This is the way it was supposed to have been. I couldn't have written it any better. And it would have been one of the biggest regrets of my life if we hadn't reunited. And I look at like bands like Sebastian and Skid Row or whatever. There's probably a big list that we could name. And you know what? Time does heal all wounds. And I would recommend this to anybody. It's better to be riding off into the sunset together and rekindling a friendship and a love that certainly had to have been there at one point for any of these bands, Roger Waters and Pink Floyd. It's there somewhere deep down, and it's better to ride off into the sunset together than to be apart and having those deep-seated resentments. Life is just too short for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's like I think you took some of the bands right out of the top of my head.
Yeah.
But so that 13 or 14 years, was this like a chance for you to get out and just like I don't know, for lack of a better term, just do your own thing, do things maybe you couldn't do when you're in Dream Theater, and kind of get that out of your system?
The years that I was away.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, look, I always loved the Dream Theater guys, and even when I left the band 25 years in back in 2010. It wasn't any fight or anything that broke us up. It broke my heart having to leave the band. I just wanted to try some other things in my life. I was at that point touring with Avenged Sevenfold, and I had done a few other things that I got a taste of what else is out there other than this Dream Theater world. And I wanted to be able to spread my wings a little and do some of those things. We already mentioned the Winery Dogs and Metal Allegiance and my bands with Neil Morse like Flying Colors and Transatlantic. All of those were things that I loved doing, and that maybe those musical styles didn't have a place in Dream Theater's world. So I wanted to expand myself a little bit and work with some other musicians and tap into some different musical styles. So once I left the band, I just went nuts. I just formed 8 or 9 different bands, and I did something like 40 or 50 studio albums over those 13 years, something crazy like that, just touring from band to band to band, tour to tour to tour. And I don't regret a minute of it, because it was really some of the greatest musical experiences I've ever had. And I wouldn't have had them if I didn't step away from that time from Dream Theater. So really, everything happens for a reason. And, as much as I missed Dream Theater and missed the guys and missed the fans, I have no regrets about those years away, because I really achieved some incredible musical experiences.
Now, you mentioned Metal Allegiance. Dave Ellefson told me, you said, ask him about the show on the Motorhead cruise, the first one.
Well, that's where we started. We originally, myself, David Ellefson, Charlie Benante, and Frank Bello from Anthrax, the 4 of us, along with Mark Mengi, who was a corporate guy at the time, we were doing these kind of big clinic things called Metal Masters, and it grew to the point we had Kerry King from Slayer, we had Phil Anselmo from Pantera, we had all these guys joining us as it developed, and then finally we found ourselves on the motorboat, and that's when Alex Skolnick from Testament joined us, and at that point we had this idea of evolving it into a thing called Metal Allegiance, and at that point the idea was to get together and write some original music. And from there, we made 2 albums of all original music. The core band being myself, David Ellefson, Alex Skolnick, and Mark Mengi. And from there, we had everybody joining us. Mark Asageda from Death Angel, Phil Demmel from Machine Head. Literally, this who's who of the thrash metal world ended up getting involved with Metal Allegiance. Not only the 2 studio albums, but every year we'll do 1 or 2 shows. We do an annual show that coincides with the NAMM show out in the West Coast, usually every January. And then usually we'll squeeze in an East Coast show later in the year if we can. But yeah, it's been this ongoing kind of community of metal musicians that have done this. and everybody from every thrash metal band I could think of, from Metallica to Slayer to Anthrax to Mastodon, they've all been included in some, extent or another. And it's been one of the most fun things for me to have this thrash metal outlet because, I'm kind of like a kid playing in their playground. Honestly, I'm like the prog guy getting to play with all my thrash friends.
Yeah, I'm sure they love that. I know David Ellison does. Hey, I see your Ozzy shirt on there. I don't know if I've ever that seems like kind of an unusual shirt. I don't know if I've ever seen that one before.
On the Blizzard of Oz tour.
Oh, wow, that's an old one. Wow,
81, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a huge Ozzy fan. I know you've talked about that. Did you watch that final show? Yeah,
well, I was on tour in Europe when it happened, so I couldn't watch it in real time. I didn't have 10 hours to just sit in front of it wasn't like a day off. So I had to kind of grab the live stream and watch it in chunks. But over the course of about a week or so, I banged through the whole concert and it was phenomenal. What a glorious. I mean, and now it's even more significant with Ozzy's passing. But even if Ozzy hadn't passed, it was such an incredible tribute. And I've said this elsewhere, but you see these amazing tribute concerts like the Freddie Mercury tribute concert or the Taylor Hawkins tribute concert. And in those cases, it was always after the fact, and those artists didn't get to feel the love. In this case, it was so beautiful because Ozzy was there and was alive to not only experience it, but to play it as well. And for him to have felt that love and really for everybody to be able to have that final day with him, to say goodbye and to say thank you, it could not have been any more beautifully written. I mean, to have lost him 2 weeks later is just absolutely surreal, absolutely surreal. But for him to have, not only for him, but for all of us to have that final goodbye, that farewell kind of celebration was just so beautiful.
And you probably met him a bunch of times, right?
I only met Ozzy once, to be honest. When I was touring with Avenged, we did a show together, and I met him. We were on a car and a train in Japan that was blocked off just for the two of our bands. So I have a picture with him on the bullet train in Japan, which is we're better to have a photo with Ozzy than on a crazy train, But I only met him once, but everybody else that played the concert, everybody from Anthrax to Slayer to Mastodon. I mean, I'm friends with all the guys, all the musicians that took part in it. I was so jealous to not be there because I was like the only one out of all those groups of the metal bands and stuff that wasn't there celebrating and performing. I was on tour with Dream Theater elsewhere and couldn't make it. But what an amazing show! What an amazing send off and a perfect farewell celebration.
Yeah, that was like the rock event of the century for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, last thing here for you, we'll let you go. I know that you're big into movies and films and stuff, and you mentioned George Harrison. Have you seen the new movie Weapons?
I heard about it. No spoilers because it's on my must-see film list. Okay. And I hear that there's a George Harrison song that appears. I don't even know which one because I prefer to just soak it in and feel it that way.
I won't tell you.
Yeah, but I'm a huge movie fan, and I'm dying to see that. And I love when obscure rock songs are put into a movie. Like there's a movie called Mandy, which was made by Panos Cosmatos, this amazing Greek director. It opens with King Crimson's Starless, and it was a goosebumps. Or there was a film, Vincent Gallo's Buffalo 66, that came out many years ago that utilized Yes's Heart of the Sunrise in it. I love when obscure rock songs are utilized in a film. It's a great thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it was funny because I put it on my turntable, the record, and I heard that song, and it kind of flashed back to the movie right away. But what are some of the other movies that you've seen lately that you've liked? Is there any that are out right now, any newer ones?
I just watched Eddington, which was Ari Aster's latest film. Ari Aster's one of my favorite modern directors. He did Hereditary and Midsommar, and this is his latest one, and it's brilliant. It's a masterpiece. Modern day country, like modern day Western, kind of like the Coen brothers' No Country for Old Men, kind of in that feel. But yeah, Ari Aster is amazing. He's one of my favorite directors out there. Him and Paul Thomas Anderson. There's a lot of great guys these days. The whole A24 studio. I mean, everything they put out, I'll go see anything they put out, regardless of who made it or who's in it. I just know that it's a stamp of quality if they're putting it out.
Yeah, I'm a horror guy, so I just saw Together was pretty wild.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
Yeah, Weapons was great. I thought Weapons was really good.
A lot of great horror films just came out, but yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw Dead. What is it? Talk. Wait. Not the company. The guy. The directors that. They did. What is it? Talk to me. Talk to her. Bring her back alive. What's the movie I just saw? I'm spacing out here.
I think I know what you're talking about. But Neon and all these companies are putting out all this.
Bring her back. Bring her back. That's another great one. Would reminded me of Hereditary a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny because I see so many of them. Sometimes I forget which ones I've watched. Like that movie. Did you see In a Violent Nature?
Yeah, and they're making a second one. Actually, they're making a sequel.
I thought it was a little bit slow, but I thought it was pretty.
I don't mind slow. I love slow. I can handle it. I'm a David Lynch fanatic.
Yeah. That was pretty good. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of the other ones I've seen lately. But yeah, Together was
Strange Darling. There's a film called Strange Darling.
Yeah, that was. See that film was okay.
Tarantino-esque.
All right, yeah, you got into it now, so now I got to get into it. So that film was told in a unique way, and so is Weapons.
Great. I love that. I love when it's nonlinear. That was very, very Quentin Tarantino, and I love when films are told that way.
Yeah, well, we could talk movies all day long, but we'll say September 21st at the Fox with Mike and Dream Theater. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, man. Thank you. See you then.
The Revenge of Alice Cooper is the new record from the Alice Cooper Band. Not just Alice Cooper, but from the Alice Cooper Band, their first record in over 50 years. As he's gotten the band back together, the original band, and they put out this record, very classic feel. We talk about that. Coming up here with Dennis Dunaway. He's got one songwriting credit on this album, one by himself. We talk about that. When he was here in studio, as I told you about at the beginning of the episode, he told me the funniest story about this cannon prop they tried many, many years ago. He relives that as well. So lots more today with Dennis Dunaway from the Alice Cooper Band. Hi, Dennis. How are you?
Great. We're so excited about this new album, and thanks for having me on. Good old Detroit. I got to have my fist in the air while we talk.
Yeah, that's right. You know, you were actually in this very studio. I think back in 2018 you were with me. I think you and your wife came by. The Live from the AstroTurf, if I'm not mistaken. You recall that?
Oh, yes. All right, yeah. And the great Jan Uelski from Cream Magazine was there that time. Yeah. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now
it was great to see Detroit, downtown Detroit, with all of the vibrancy coming back. It's very cool to see.
Yeah, we'll talk about Detroit here in a few minutes, of course, and I know that you spent some time here. But The Revenge of Alice Cooper is out. Man, it's just so good. It's so like reminiscent. It's almost like riding a bike. You guys haven't skipped a beat. Tell me about this record.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like riding a bike. And when we walked into the studio, initially Bob Ezrin said, "Hey, the four of you guys go to the studio, just the four of you, and see if you can get it back or whatever." And there was no getting it back. We got together as soon as we walked into the same room. We reverted to high school guys, and we knocked out a bunch of songs. So Bob said, "Oh, okay, well, let's do this then." Well, that was 2021. It took until 2025 for it to get finally finished and released, only because everybody's schedule was so full. There would be these long droughts between this exciting energy. And then every time we thought, oh, well, it's not going to happen again, then something exciting would happen again. But we couldn't talk about it for 4 years.
Yeah.
That was
Detroit,
that Detroit energy, that when we landed in Detroit back in late 60s, we were all Hollywood glitzy, quirky little ditties. Our music was very avant-garde. And then the Stooges and MC5 and everything. And, well, of course, Motown is also an influence on us. But that we gained that edginess to our sound, which is still there today. You can hear it on this new album.
Yeah, there's a certain workhorse mentality and a certain blue collarness to this town. And it's funny because I grew up in Buffalo, and people always go, "What is Buffalo like when I'm here?" And then the vice versa. And it's like Buffalo and Detroit are kind of the same kind of working hard, playing hard kind of cities. And I guess that kind of rubbed off on you guys.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like if you played a ballad back in those days, they'd run you out of town with a tire iron.
That's right. So you mentioned just now that you guys are working on this since 2021. That's when Detroit Stories came out. I know you played some tracks on that. Were you here in Detroit at Rust Belt Studios doing that record?
No, but it's interesting because Alice, I was out in Phoenix, Arizona with Alice and Bob Ezrin, and they were going through all of the submitted songs for that album, all the demos, a lot of great songs too. And then they told me which songs that I submitted that they liked. So I had printed out all of the lyrics to all of my songs that I submitted, and I was rushing through them to find the ones that Alice wanted, and I handed them to him. And then next thing I know, he and Bob had recorded a song. Some lyrics got in there, "Drunken in Love," and I didn't know that those lyrics got in there, and they recorded a song with my lyrics that Joe Bonamassa eventually played on. But yeah, no, I missed out on those. I was out in Phoenix, Arizona with the ground up, them deciding what songs they were going to do.
Now, on this new record, The Revenge of Alice Cooper, you do have a solo writing credit to the song Blood on the Sun. Tell me about that.
That song came about because of Glenn Buxton, our late great guitar player who passed away in 1997. He collected TV guides, so you knew what was on television for the next week back in the old days.
Yeah.
And so I was reading through them, and I was thinking, wow, there's so many great movie titles. And I went through and I just marked all of the TV or all of the movie titles that I thought were interesting. And then I went back and I put them in order. So the entire lyrics of the entire song is movie titles strung together.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really cool. The record's awesome. What is it like working with Bob Ezrin? You mentioned him a couple times now. I know he's done it's just some legendary work. Tell me about working with a guy like that.
Well, we all learned the ropes together. Love It to Death was our third album and Bob Ezrin's very first album. So he's part of the band. The chemistry is so there that he knows that we all come up with a million ideas and everybody has a say. And then he also knows when to say, oh, okay, guys, we're going to do it this way. Let's move forward. Let's not lose any time here while the clock is ticking off dollars, But Bob walks into the studio with this energy that's almost like a cheerleader, but yet he's definitely has the final say when it comes to when we're going to record, and okay, let's make this decision quick because we're going to roll here, and all of that, as that's what a producer does. And also, when Bob Ezrin is there, it's going to sound good. So there's no pressure there. And we had 70 songs to choose from. Wow. So no pressure there. So we just had a blast. It was so much fun. You can hear it in the grooves. It's high energy fun.
Yeah. And how do you narrow it down from all those songs? And what's with the rest of them now? Are they stored away somewhere, maybe for another record?
Hopefully we had enough for 5 records, but we were in the studio and we would decide what we were going to record first, and it might be something that we're familiar with, but most of the time it would be Neil's song, so I would have to learn it, and or Michael's song and I'd have to learn it, or like Blood on the Sun, I played guitar on it to set the guide track, and then I showed Michael the parts, and our friend Rick Tedesco was there playing guitar. Actually, he was playing Glenn Buxton's white SG guitar on most of the songs on this album. But so it was that spontaneity of a brand new song that we're locked into. That's what's captured on the album, rather than songs that we took a couple weeks to whip in the shape in the old days and then go in the studio. I love the raw energy of this.
Yeah, just like many before. with the Alice Cooper catalog and Alice Cooper band. You just mentioned Love It to Death, and I was going to ask you if you have an uncensored version of that I can have. I'm always looking for that on vinyl.
Oh, my gosh. For one thing, I would have to do a lot of digging to see if I could find any of those rehearsal tapes. And the second thing is the tape not disintegrated at this point?
Well, I'm talking about the cover album. I'm always looking for the cover with Alice, where he was sticking his finger through the through his pants. That's censored on most of the records. I haven't been able to find an uncensored one yet.
Okay, so Ear Music did a photo session out in Phoenix, Arizona for promotional material for this album. And we did some shots where we recreated the look of the cover, the front cover of the Love It to Death album. Mm. And then there was a buffet over there, and I ran over there and I grabbed a banana. So Alice is holding a banana in the new one.
I thought you were going to say a sausage or a hot dog or something, but yeah, that's right, a banana.
Well, the banana was the one that was handy.
That's so funny. So, switching gears here a little bit. You were there a few weeks ago when Alice paid tribute to Ozzy and stuff. Johnny Depp was there and all that stuff. Tell me about that night.
Yeah, well, the night before was a big night because we were at the Union Chapel of this magnificent church, and it was pushing 1,000 fans in there. And we were interviewed by the great Tim Rice, mm-hmm. who wrote the lyrics for Evita and Jesus Christ Superstar and on and on and on. And that was streamed globally. You can still see it if you look it up on YouTube. But so that was a big night. And then the following night at the O2, of course, the sad news about Ozzy was on everybody's mind. So Johnny Depp showed up and they played Paranoid. Mm-hmm. And the crowd, that was thousands of people at the O2 Arena. And everybody was chanting Ozzy, Ozzy, Ozzy. It was so loud, appropriately, and it was so moving. And then the next song was School's Out with another brick in the wall in the middle. Mm. And Johnny stayed out there. And then the original group, we all came out and joined in for this big, giant circus-like finale. It was, and then after that was Judas Priest played.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal night, but it definitely a tribute to Ozzy.
Now, did you ever cross paths with Black Sabbath when you were in the Alice Cooper band back in the early 70s?
Yeah, in 72, we did about 4 shows together. 3 of them, Black Sabbath killed it, as you would expect. Mm-hmm. One night they were pretty drunk, though, and I'm not sure it was their best night, that's for sure. But, yeah, we did. One of the nights, Ottawa, Canada, I walked into the venue thinking, oh, my God, I'm so exhausted, but we're on the bill with Black Sabbath. I got to summon my energy here. And here's this new band that nobody had ever heard of called Yes, opening the, and I'm going, I'm worried about Black Sabbath. Who are these guys?
Yeah, I remember when you were here in the studio with me, it was so funny because you told me the story, and I've told this to so many people, the story about where you guys tried the shooting Alice across the stage.
All right, the cannon.
Yeah.
That's too bad that didn't work. This cannon was built by the Warner Brothers props department, right. And it was gigantic. It was made out of wood. It would look like Jules Verne kind of a thing. And that did not work. That was very Spinal Tap. We told it was one night only. It failed so badly. That was the cannon was put away. But so we told the spotlight guy at the back of the room, okay, Alice is going to get in the barrel of the cannon and it's going to tilt up and Alice is going to wave. We want the spotlight on that. And then when Alice disappears down the barrel, wait for the smoke. And when the smoke comes out, make the spotlight go across the stage. And it was supposed to follow this dummy of Alice going across the stage. The cannon went off, the smoke came out of the barrel, and the dummy just dribbled out the barrel and hung swinging by its toe, and the spotlight stayed on that. So, luckily, Mickey Dolenz was there that night, so we came back out and did the Monkees theme. Hey, we're the Monkees. But that was the end of the canon.
That is such a funny story. I've told that story on the radio, and oh my God, man, it's just hysterical. But so real fast here before we wrap things up here, and I think I'm running out of time. Detroit stories. Just give me a Detroit story. Of course, the last record in 2021. But you guys were here for a while. Tell me something that you really remember about Detroit in the early 70s. We touched on it a little bit. What else you got?
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to talk about MC5. But also, we were across town. The Grandy Ballroom was MC5 a turf.
Yeah.
Across town was the East Town Theater. That was the Stooges and our turf. And, the stage was about 2.5 feet tall and a wooden floor. And back in those days, if the singer dove off the stage like Iggy did, people got out of the way and Iggy would hit the floor, and then he would get up and he would walk around and decide who he was going to pick a fight with, and that was the honorary person. They got to go back to work on Monday morning saying, yeah, I got this black eye from Iggy, But so we were walking in with our equipment, I had my bass in my hand and everything. We're walking in, and this was happening while we were walking in. So we stopped to watch, and Iggy kept going around, and then he locked eyes with Alice. And it seemed like forever, but they locked eyes for a really long time. And then finally, Iggy just laughed, and then he moved on and picked somebody else for the fight. But that was almost a historic moment. I think that Iggy would have won.
Yeah, well, Alice might have been falling down at that point, right? Was he sober or no?
No, he was. Well, Alice was a functional drunk, and that wasn't the whiskey days. So in the beer drinking days, he was pretty functional at all times.
Yeah. Well, The Revenge of Alice Cooper is out right now, and I'm gonna turn my camera on real fast just to say hello if I can. I don't even know if it's showing me now. Anyways, there we are.
There you are.
Yeah, I just want to say hello because you came in this studio about in 2018, I think, and it was a great interview just like this one. But Dennis, we appreciate your time. The Revenge of Alice Cooper, like I said, out right now, and maybe we'll see you here in Detroit sometime soon.
Oh, yeah, I hope so. Always loved coming back to Detroit, and I love how, that Detroit energy is undeniable. I mean, from Motown to the era that we were in till now, there's a lot of music and a lot of music appreciation, and like you say, it's hardworking people.
Mm-hmm. Dennis, thank you so much, man. Good luck with everything. Great to see you.
All right, good to see you. Hopefully soon again.
That's a jam-packed episode. Mike Portnoy and Dennis Dunaway on Talkin Rock with Meltdown. Got to thank both those guys for taking some time out with me. Like I said earlier, next week I've already got 2 guests lined up, and both of these men I do believe are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One for sure I know, and I'm pretty sure the other one is too, but we'll talk about that next week. But yeah, looking forward to getting both these guys on. Of course, check out my page on WRIF.com, and you can always punch these interviews up on YouTube, except for that Dennis Dunaway one. That was audio only. But yeah, the Mike Portnoy and even the ones I have coming up next week. Hey, thanks so much for checking out the podcast. Have a great weekend as we record this on a Friday.
Thank you for listening to Talkin Rock with Meltdown. You can help this podcast grow by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review on Apple and iTunes. Plus, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Until next time, thanks for listening to Talkin Rock.
Hi there, my name is Melissa Iannuzzo. I'm a 30-year radio veteran and big-time fan of the law. Chris Brown is an entertainment attorney with 27 years experience, and together, we're bringing you our new podcast, Verdicts and Vibes. Each week, we'll break down the most high-profile celebrity and pop culture cases and trials in ways the average person like me can understand. We'll have special guests and take your legal questions. New episodes of Verdicts and Vibes every Thursday. Download and subscribe wherever you stream your podcasts.